I like this background.
Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast, and you will for sure recognize the lady on the other side of my screen. She is a dear friend. My wife and I just totally love her. We have two girls older than her, and we just love her. My wife's exact words were, "I just want to hug her."
Oh, I
And
love her so
we
much.
love we love Kimberly Joe Becker so much. And you may remember she used to do these podcasts with us. She used to host them. Now she's doing the red zone updates. I'm going to see her up in Mile High. I cannot wait. Kimberly Joe, how are you, friend?
I mean, it's crazy to look back at the journey, Hondo, that you and I started several years ago. And now I get to see you in person for the second time only, but in person this weekend at the Denver Broncos Las Vegas Raiders game at Mile High. And I'm so excited to see you. It's very weird being on the opposite side here. Now I'm talking Broncos and you're talking Raiders because we used to talk Raiders so much together, but that's how this sports media business works. So I'm excited to be here.
I'm telling you, Shannon, her exact words were like, "I wish I was going to Denver. I want to go see Kim."
Bring
So
her.
forget the game. Shannon wanted to see you. And my new baby, you haven't met my new baby,
I
Dexter
haven't, but
Ernest Wayne.
we're friends on Facebook, Hondo, and I see the pictures all the time. How is he?
He is awesome. He's almost 13 months old. And let me tell you, we love him, Kim.
You guys are
What a
saints. You
joy to
have
our life.
amazing.
What a blessing. And you know how much we love our kids.
So
And
much.
and then to be able to add him, doesn't matter whether they come through regular birth or adoption. He's a blessing to our life, and we sure love him. All right, let's dig in on this game. Now, you've been to training camp, you're aware of it. I want to get your thoughts, your opinions. You're a former professional athlete, so you understand what goes in, even though it's a different sport. To get to that level of being a professional, there takes such a great um, um, commitment. I want to talk about Sean Payton.
Yeah.
Kim, I think he's a very good coach.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's great, and I want to explain what I mean. To me, Bill Parcells, Jimmy Johnson, Vince Lombardi, Bill Belichick, Andy Reid are the great ones.
Okay.
I don't think there's any shame in being a good coach, but I don't think he's a guy that just steps in and all of a sudden cures all of the woes of the Broncos. I think they've got a good defense. I think Russell Wilson is automatically going to be better because Sean Payton is a considerably better coach than what they had. But your thoughts early, you've been to camp on Sean Payton.
So the Sean Payton factor is so very interesting to me because I am a firm believer that if Sean Payton cannot help this current squad specifically be better than last year, I'm not really sure what the answer is for this specific squad, for this specific roster. So I do think that Sean Payton obviously has a ton more experience than Nathaniel Hackett had. He has a ton more grit, discipline. You know, it's his way or the highway. It's not Russell Wilson's way or the highway. And I think last year was such a disappointment because Russell Wilson was coming into this new offense, this new system. And not only was it under a new head coach, it was in a new city with new fans. And there was so much expectation because of what he did in Seattle. And for a quarterback to come into a new system and to transfer like that and literally relearn pretty much everything under a new head coach or be given the reins to teach everybody everything when he's trying to figure out himself. I think last year was just such a disappointment and such a chaotic mess, honestly, that Sean Payton does have to considerably be better and make this squad better this year. So from what I've seen from Sean Payton, individually as a head coach, it is we are doing this, and this is how it's run. And I think the structure and the discipline and just the meticulousness of, okay, we're looking at this in the moment. We're not looking ahead. We're doing this right now. I think that's going to be so helpful for this roster and for the group that they have out on the field now. It's hard for me to get ahead of myself and think, oh yeah, that he's the greatest coach ever. Like you said, you listed all those names. Those are classics. Those are legends. I think out of the group that was available, Sean Payton was definitely the best option to become head coach of the Denver Broncos this year. And that's why everyone here is so excited because obviously he was the most expensive. Yeah, right. He took a year off and he worked for Fox. So we didn't even know if he would even come back and be the head coach. But with the options that they had with this new ownership group, I do think that he was the best part of the puzzle that could possibly help them get over 500 this year. But I do think it has a lot to do with the locker room and how these guys are going to come together, because Nathaniel Hackett lost the locker room at the end of last season. And that, as a professional athlete, I know when that's getting in your head with you and your peers and the other people that you are playing this sport with, that you are living your passion with, that has to be so tight knit.
You know, I'll tell you who when we get off air. I'm not going to say on air,
I love it when
but I
you do
had
that.
somebody. Well, and I always tell you, do I not?
You do, and you never say it on, and you are very, very, very reliable.
But I got to say that somebody who I trust, who's very much a part of the Bronco organization, told me that they felt like the Broncos did a disservice to Russell Wilson last year,
Last year.
giving him an office, multiple lockers. It was almost the Russell Wilson show.
Yep.
And that there started to be pushback against Russell. And they told me the problem was Russell didn't ask for all that. They
Mm.
just treated him like he was a god. And what are you gonna say? And they felt like Sean was going to help because Sean came in. They said there was no problems with Russell. He wasn't mad at him for yanking in the chains, and it was stuff he didn't ask for. I thought that was really fascinating to me. What do you think of that?
That is very interesting, but I could see how that would happen because Russell Wilson was the iconic name that was
Mm-hmm.
added to the Denver Broncos, right? Like Hackett was already here. We had this new head coach. We knew the culture was going to change. Maybe we were going to hear music at training camp because Vic Fangio had taken that away. So it was the fun aspect of Nathaniel Hackett. And then when you've got Russell Wilson, who has such a career under his belt, and finally a quarterback for the Denver Broncos that is not just a guy they're trying to make a franchise quarterback. It's a guy who's already become a franchise quarterback somewhere else and could bring these new elements. Of course, it makes sense that Nathaniel Hackett and everybody at the front office would be like, whatever Russell Wilson wants. And we think he wants these things. So we're just going to give it to him. And Russell Wilson was probably like, oh, okay, well, that's how they see me. That's how I'm going to be treated here. I'm going to take it because maybe it'll help me better mentally. And then when the season started and it wasn't going that way, they probably didn't think, oh, well, let's take it away from Russell. That's going to help him. They were probably just like, let him get used to this. So that's actually very interesting. I hadn't heard that he didn't ask for any of that, but I had heard that, yes, it was the Russell Wilson show, right? He had his own trainer, he had his own people. And Sean Payton has said none of that is happening this year. No one's getting their own staff. No one's getting their individual, media training, whatever, inside of the facility. And I think that's huge. But I have also heard, which I'm going to touch on here, that you've mentioned a lot of players, a lot of teammates and peers of Russell Wilson have also come out and said, stop hating on Russell Wilson. This is not his fault. So everything that you just said checks out.
All right, I'm going to talk to you about Russell Wilson for a minute. And you've known me for years. I have always loved Russell.
You have.
I covered him back at Wisconsin in college, and I believe in him. He's just a fine person, a great young man. I would not call him a friend, but I've spent enough time with him and watched him in situations that were not media. I'll give you a quick one. We're at Big Ten Media Days, and he was standing in the hallway by himself, and these kids were just all rushing up to him. And when they came and said, "Hey, it's time for you to go on Big Ten Network," he's like, "Well, just a minute." And he made Big Ten Network wait, which most college kids don't, to take pictures and sign autographs. And to me, how you treat that was just a big deal. So I've always respected him. I've always liked him. So none of this is personal. But if you go back to Seattle before he got injured, his career was already trending down. Then he gets injured. So when Denver made that trade, I said, no sense to me because you're not getting the Russell Wilson of 10 years ago. And so to me, and this is my opinion, and I'm not the insider. You're the person in Denver. But to me, I think if you're Sean Payton, you can't lose. Here's why. Because if it doesn't work out with Russell, you can go to him and say, listen, I didn't sign this guy to this contract. You brought me here to win, and I can't win with him. So we got to move him away. But do you think Russell Wilson is on a long leash or a short leash? Because Sean Payton don't play. And again, me not saying he's not one of the greats is not a criticism. There are very few greats, but he's a good coach. Do you think he's on a long leash or a short leash? And let me tell you what I think first, just because I don't want you to think I'm mimicking you. I think the earlier in the season, the leash is longer. But If losses start mounting and the season starts to get away, then it's like, okay, let's go with somebody else and see what we got. Your thoughts?
It's funny you asked that because I just had a very similar conversation last week. We said, hypothetically, how many wins do you think the Denver Broncos need to keep Russell Wilson under center next year? And it was funny. We kind of moved some things around. We gave it some context, how many touchdowns he's throwing, how many passing yards, how many interceptions. But I do think, because last year they were 5-12, they need to get to 500. I think truly, which I guess there's no 500 anymore because there's 17 games, but I think they need to be in single digit losses. I do not think they can have 10 losses with Russell Wilson. They'd be 7-10. Sean Payton has never, ever won less than 7 games as a head coach, ever. And I think with him and Russell Wilson and what this ownership group is investing into the facility, into the team, into the front office, I think they do have to have single digit losses, which means 9 losses. So I agree with you. I think I wouldn't say it's a long leash in the beginning. I'd say maybe it's a medium leash that will get shorter as the games go on. And maybe it will get a little longer if he's playing well and if the Denver Broncos are winning and if they're scoring points. I think the biggest thing right now is for this offense to score points. They had the least average points per game last year, the Denver Broncos offense did. So to me, it's Russell Wilson needing to throw touchdowns and it's needing to let the offense get into the red zone and into the end zone. If that's not happening, I don't think that Russell Wilson be around. And you know that the Denver Broncos won't win if they don't score points on offense. They can't win with field goals, so they need to get touchdowns. And I do think that this is going to be the last year for Russell Wilson if he can't get it together.
All right, now I want to go to the defensive side of the ball because they've always been traditionally a solid team on defense. I don't see any reason to doubt their defense. Do you?
Nope. No, I do not. And especially watching them at training camp, they are definitely that powerhouse unit. The offense really struggled up against them in the beginning. The offense made stride. I will say Russell Wilson and his offense made strides throughout training camp and as the days went on. But Sean Payton said something really awesome after practice. He said, yeah, we want our offense to be struggling against this defense right now because this is one of the best defenses in the league. So the offense needs to level up to be on the same path, on the same trajectory as this Denver Broncos defense. But no, what Vance Joseph has done with the defense, what Pat Surtain is out there doing, Justin Simmons. I mean, these are legendary guys that I've been able to see up close and personal, and they are doing very similar things that they did last season. And, the Denver Broncos defense was so great last season. They got tired. They were out there so much on the field because the offense was never on the freaking field that they got tired by the end of the season. So if they can start the season the same way they did last year and sustain that, hopefully the offense will have more minutes out there, then I think it's going to be the same powerhouse unit.
We're going to play agree or disagree. I don't think Russell Wilson has to be great for the Broncos to get to 9-8, but he does have to be adequate with that defense. Agree or disagree?
Disagree. I think he has to be great.
Oh, you think he has to be great?
I do. I think he has to be great because of what you said earlier. Sean Payton came here to win. And if he can't win with Russell Wilson, then they're not winning games and they're not going to get to the 9-8.
But my point is, with that defense, he didn't have to go out and score 35 points a game and be great.
Right.
He's got to get them 21, 24, somewhere along those lines. And with that defense, because if he's getting those points, he's giving the D time to get a blow, to get a rest. And so if he's adequate enough to score 21 or 24, I think that defense is great enough to keep people under 21, 24. You agree?
I agree with that, but I don't think that Russell Wilson can rely on the defense to win games. So I think Russell Wilson has to get enough of a lead on the other team so that the defense doesn't have to come out there and save him, because I think that's where you're going to lose part of the locker room as well. I don't know any details about what went on between the offense and the defense last year in the locker room, but I've seen faces on the sidelines from broadcasts. I've read things. I've heard things that insinuated that the defense was like, dude, get it together. We cannot be
I was told by the person, I'm going to tell you who, and we're off air.
Okay.
The defense was pissed last year. They were furious last year.
So Russell Wilson does have to be great, because I don't think the defense can have any feeling that they are being relied on by Russell Wilson. Like, I don't think that Russell Wilson can go out there and be adequate and then go to the side and be like, sorry guys, like, can you take care of this? I don't think that can happen. So I think in context, when it comes to Russell Wilson, he does have to be great for this squad.
All right. Again, now we're playing agree or disagree. To me, the Broncos are not a playoff team in 2023.
Disagree. I'm going to be optimistic.
Okay, but wait. See, this is the difference between me and you. I'm not a fan. So
Exactly.
I'm
It's
able
hard.
that I know it helps me, Kimberly Joe Becker, because I'm not a fan. Come on now. You have to admit there's some fandom. I'm asking you to set aside fandom.
Okay.
Do you?
Okay. We set aside the fandom. I agree. I do not think they are a playoff team. And if they do make the playoffs, they're probably going to get blown out. They will be a wild card team and they will get blown out. But I also will say, I do not think they are a playoff team because of the division that they're in. Patrick
My
Mahomes and the
wife,
Chiefs.
my wife would be so thrilled. I finally got you to say something that isn't even rude. It's just not
Not
100%
rude.
pro Bronco.
You
All right.
didn't give me
Move.
you didn't give me these disclaimers before I hopped on here with you, Hondo. You're throwing me under the bus here.
All right. Remember now, we're playing agree or disagree. If Sean Payton were coaching the Chargers, they would be a playoff team.
Agree.
100% agree. I think they would
Yes.
be a dark horse Super Bowl team.
Yep, I agree with you there. I have actually been high on the Chargers the last couple of years. I think that they have been the opportunities that they have been taken away. Justin Herbert has it in him. You can see it in his eyes. And I do agree if Sean Payton was the head coach.
I'm just going to tell you this, though. The Chargers coach, he was disappointed Hackett got fired because now he is the worst coach. Nobody does less with more. He costs his team at least one game a year with just some of the stupid decisions. If you're a Raider fan or a Bronco fan or any fan of the other 31 teams, you're sending donations to LA to keep him as coach. Dear God, he's terrible.
What about the Arizona Cardinals coach, Gannon? You don't think he's underneath?
I don't think we know enough yet.
Okay. That's true.
But he doesn't have all the talent.
Right.
He doesn't have all the talent in San Francisco. And all you had to do was watch that playoff game last year and watch the boy genius blow that one. What was like 27-0 at halftime? Dear Lord God, it was terrible. All right. Last one of agree or disagree. And I think this is a big one. That Andy Reid right now is the best coach in the National Football League. I think 100%. Set aside your fandom.
I would not say Sean Payton is the greatest. Don't you worry. I wouldn't say that. Of course, Bill Belichick comes to mind. But my
point is saying right now in this league, if you're starting a franchise, I'm not taking Belichick. I'm taking Andy Reid.
You're taking Andy Reid. But you don't think that has anything to do with who he has on the roster?
Well,
what if Bill Belichick had Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, but look at all the people that Andy Reid's done it with.
Amazing. It is amazing.
Look at what he did. Yeah. How would you like to be look what he did at Philadelphia. And here's the other one. Andy Reid is selecting the Patrick Mahomeses and the others. Belichick has not been drafting good lately.
That is very, very, very true. And some of his moves have been questionable, Bill Belichick. So yes, I agree with you.
All right. So now let's go. I want to get back to this game on this weekend because there's a lot of fascinating things to me. First of all, I think there's the fascination that we know the Raiders offense is absolutely loaded. The deepest wide receiver core in the NFL, the best running back, one or two running back, depending on where you have Josh Jacobs in the entire NFL. Jimmy Garoppolo, they're not going to have the holding of the ball anymore for whatever and get the fumbles. They're not going to have all the interceptions that we saw because he held the ball too long. I think the Raiders offense is not the issue. It's going to be the defense. The Raiders defense, significant upgrades. I think it's significantly better. We're going to find out how much better. But to me, the game comes down to the Raider defense. Your thoughts on that? Am I oversimplifying Sunday's game?
I think you are, because what about the Denver Broncos defense up against this loaded, as you call it, Las Vegas Raiders offense, which I agree with you. Josh Jacobs, one of the best running backs in the entire league. And I saw what he did the last couple of years. Now, is he playing? Do we know if Josh Jacobs is good to go? Ready? Fire? Awesome. Okay. So I do think the Las Vegas Raiders offense will have some struggles up against the Denver Broncos defense, though, here in Denver. So I don't know if it's going to come down to the Las Vegas Raiders defense. I would say it's more going to be the offense, especially with Jimmy Garoppolo being under center for the first time in that Raiders uniform. He's also coming into a new system.
I'm going to tell you why I disagree. because I thought the Raiders had, I mean, the Broncos had a great defense last year, and the Raiders were still able to score points on them, and their offense is better this year. So I'm not worried about them. Now, listen, do I think they're going to go out and score as many points against the Broncos as some other teams on their schedule? No way. I think the Bronco defense is one of the best, but I think they're going to score enough points to win. The issue to me comes down to, can the Raiders defense keep Russell Wilson in that new look Bronco offense low enough in point totals that they win? I mean, you're going to be down your 1 and 2 receivers. And I think you can't understate that with the Broncos because of the way Sean Payton uses guys. Go back and look at Alvin Kamara, the way he moves guys around like a Swiss Army knife. I don't think minus 2 receivers, Bronco fan can judge Sean Payton after Sunday, win or lose. And I don't think that Raider fan can, or anyone else. You got to be able to get a complement of talents, because let's face it, Sean Payton is excellent at getting different players involved in different places. That's why, to me, it's going to be the Raiders defense, Broncos offense. If the Raiders defense can get those stops, get those turnovers, and keep their production, low again, I think the Raiders are going to be able to score enough points. See my thoughts?
I like your thoughts, and I get it. Every time you say something, I'm like, okay, yeah. But then I'm like, but it's still coming back to the Broncos defense for me, though, because if the Raiders defense is able to stop Russell Wilson and the offense from scoring points on the Denver side of things, well, what if the Denver Broncos defense is doing the same thing to the Las Vegas Raiders offense and they're not scoring enough points either? You think it's going to come down to a field goal? You think it's going to be a low scoring game? The over under is 44. You like that? Under?
Yes, I think I would take the over,
Okay.
but I would take the over by 1 point. I think it's a 24-21 Raider win. But again, it's just going to be such a fun game to watch. And I got to ask you real quick. You grew up a Bronco fan. You're in Denver. How awesome are you enjoying watching your Broncos?
I've had to pinch myself a couple of times the last few weeks because I just got this job to host the Red Zone updates during Broncos games on the video screen about a month or so ago. And my dad came to the game with me. I did the first preseason game a couple weeks ago when the Rams were here and the Broncos shut them out 41-0. And I did 2 of my Red Zone updates on the tallest video screen in North America. And my dad was there to see it and he videoed it. He took pictures and him and I went out afterwards to celebrate. And that was just like the coolest thing for me because my dad is the reason that I love football so much. He played for the Bears before I was born. I have 2 brothers. We grew up watching football. I love the game. I've then worked so closely with the sport, the last couple of years and been able to see those athletes and what they put themselves through. So being able to be in the Broncos stadium for the first preseason game under Sean Payton, having my dad in the stands and knowing I was out there on the video board talking about NFL football was like truly a dream come true. And I have more people coming this weekend. I have some friends that are going to come to the Commanders game. And so it's just going to be really fun to be able to share that experience with people that I grew up with here in my hometown. So I'm very, very thrilled to be able to be a part of this team and to watch this team.
Well, you know this, Shannon and I love you and we respect you and you're so good at what you do. And Jake from State Farm, I just want you to know Kim is always going to be the favorite child.
You remember Honjo, my youngest brother, Jake. I love it. Oh, thank you so much. So much love to you and Shannon. I can't wait to see you. We're going to have to send her so many pictures on Sunday.
We will. I
Yes.
promise. Now, let me ask you real quick. I need a prediction, and it's going in my article. Tim Becker, NFL Network Red Zone host. Give me a score.
This isn't just because of my fandom. I do think the Denver Broncos will cover that 3.5 point spread. It's not because of my fandom. It is how I feel. The Denver Broncos have not beat the Las Vegas Raiders in 4 years at home. I think that's going to change on Sunday. I am going with a 27-21 Denver Broncos.
Now, all of our listeners who know you are not surprised. Our tens of thousands of new ones are. But folks, we love her. She's a Denver Bronco fan. And even when I try to force her to change, she can't do it when it comes to predictions. You were the only person that ever worked for me that would pick Denver when...
Good. that means that I didn't roll over to the dark side to be a Las Vegas Raiders fan. But no, honestly, all fandom aside, I do think the Denver Broncos will have this one just because I don't trust McDaniels and this newer offense that is going to be out there on the Raiders side of things. So I just think the Broncos are going to be able to have their home and season opener end with a W.
She's the wonderful, the lovely, the kind, the amazing. My wife and I have said hundreds of millions of times, I wish she was our daughter. That's how much we care about her. She is the best, the one and only Kim Becker. You can see her, NFL Network Red Zone host. We love her. We appreciate her, and we're going to forgive her for picking the Broncos on Sunday.
We'll talk Sunday night.
That's right. I am Hondo Carpenter from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast, part of the Fans First Sports Network. Thank you, Kimberly.
Bye, Hondo. Thank you.